各位学生、各位教授、各位支持的人，大家好。我今天到这儿来的时候，以前我有一个梦，这个梦是什么呢？我的梦是我要做我所有的演讲，就是一直讲中文。但是你当一个商学院长以后，我的中文越来越退步。所以我现在不能做，所以我先要跟你们说对不起，然后让我用英文讲好不好？So it's so nice to be here. This is a wonderful moment. Two great schools coming together, a great project, and a great vision of what we can all make together. It's not just going to be great for education, but it's going to be great for the global economy and great for two great nations. I want to give a little bit of a background of where we are at the George Washington School of Business and the George Washington University more generally. And one way of doing that is I'd like to start out a little bit by telling you a few things about myself and how I got to the position where I am today, because I think it reflects in some ways on what my interests are, but also what the school's interests are and the university's interests are. So I'm actually a longtime China scholar. 25 years ago, I started on a road of thinking about how to understand what then was regarded as a very early stage developing nation. Back then we were all thinking about Japan and the Japanese economy. But I had this belief that China was on the verge of something great in the mid-1980s. And so I started studying Chinese. I actually came out of a Chinese literature background, was studying humanities at the University of Chicago. I went on to get a PhD in organizational sociology. And my passion at that time was always to understand the economic transformation of this great nation. I spent my entire career trying to unpack what it was that China was doing that was so interesting and so right for the global economy. And I've watched as both an intellectual observer, but also somebody who participates in the political debates that go on in our country for understanding what China is doing, why it's so important for the global economy, and why the relationship between our two nations is so important. Last year I became the Dean of the George Washington School of Business, and it was a school that I inherited that had already in mind two trends that were so important to what I believe business school education should be about. Now, business school education in some ways over the last 25 years I think has sort of lost its way. We became more and more isolated as a discipline and as a school, and I'm not just talking about the George Washington School of Business, but all business schools. We started to think that market efficiency theory could really describe fundamentally how we should understand economic systems. But the accounting crises of 2000 and 2001, and the financial crisis that we're still living in today, showed us that business schools actually cannot be isolated systems that are independent of the social and political structures in which they are embedded. In fact, the most responsible way to train young leaders of the world today is to build business schools that are fundamentally tied to the questions of social and political embeddedness. How is it that what we're doing in the business world is so crucial for the social, political, and cultural systems that we're a part of? Any healthy capitalist or market economy, or in fact any economy in the world, depends so heavily on business institutions. But understanding in a very deep way exactly how those business institutions shape the lives that we live in is crucial. Now, at the George Washington School of Business, we emphasize two key pieces of that puzzle. One is a real socially responsible approach to doing business. We believe very deeply in the issues of ethics, corporate social responsibility, sustainability. But we also believe, on the second point, very deeply in global embeddedness. Everybody knows the term globalization and everybody thinks about how important global business is today. But what business schools are really deeply taking on globalization? When I say deeply taking it on, what I mean is not just building exchange programs that get our own students abroad, but actually building deep partnerships in countries that take us in a deep way down the path of a relationship with that country and with the institutions of that country. Now, we can't do this everywhere in the world. We'll probably pick 3 or 4 places that are going to be our real footholds in the global economy. But as a China scholar, I have a deep passion for this place, and I have a deep passion for the relationships between the United States and China and between the institutions that define both of our nations. And so my first order of business as a dean was to take us deeply down that road of socially embedding our institution in the Chinese society. And not just creating a space in which we bring our students from the United States to China, but actually creating a space in which we build relationships with institutions here and bring our knowledge and teaching approach and our best faculty to help train a new generation of Chinese students that are going to become the leaders of this society. Now, the relationship between China and the United States, I think, is crucial right now for 3 key reasons. First of all, the world is in crisis. You're not feeling it as deeply in China today as we are in the United States, but make no mistake about it. Between the United States and Europe, which are the 2 largest consumer economies that China has a relationship with, the crisis is very deep. And we have to innovate our way out of that crisis. We have to have young business leaders that understand the complexities of finance, but also the social embeddedness of those financial systems that will help us transform the global economy in some fundamental ways. The second is that by far our most important trading partner, but our most important political partner in the global economy today is China. Make no mistake about it, despite the tensions that you read about in the newspapers and that you hear, and some of them I'm sometimes a little bit embarrassed about by the rhetoric that's coming out of my own country, but we have to remember that the relationship between our 2 nations is so important and so fundamental. It is the relationship that is going to define the healthy future of the global economy. And so that means that we have to build relationships with institutions, and we have to build relationships with students. We have to help students understand who we are, and we have to understand who you are. So that brings me to the third point, in which we have to help as the next generation of people make these tensions go away. We have to build these partnerships through business institutions, through educational institutions, through systems in which we share ideas, share knowledge, and share goals, dreams, and a future together. So how do we do that? This type of program, what I am very proud of that we've, as Dean Chen explained, that we put together very quickly. And quickly doesn't mean haphazardly, by the way. We have thought a lot about what we wanted to do with this program, but I didn't want to wait another year to launch it. And we found a great partner in Renmin University and in Dean Chen, and we were able to take the knowledge that we have through faculty like George DeVore, who has been a leader in the area of finance education for decades. And we've built a program that I believe is truly unique, and it exactly exemplifies the kind of exchange that we want to be doing and the kind of deep knowledge transference and deep set of relationships that I think will change our nations. We're also doing a number of other things in China, and so this relationship to me is just the first step. Dean Chen mentioned, for example, that we plan on launching an accounting program, and to me, finance and accounting are the 2 most important things that are needed in China today as the economic reforms lurch forward at such a rapid pace. But yesterday, for example, in Shanghai, we had a very exciting event that was done with another partner organization, the Luxury Lab think tank, in which we unveiled our China Prestige brand Digital IQ, where we've analyzed the ways in which foreign firms are doing well in communicating with Chinese people through the digital revolution. We plan on doing many things like this, and eventually we hope to have a relationship with the Suzhou Industrial Park Commission that will allow us to take this relationship and this set of goals even deeper than we are right now. Now, realizing all of these ambitious goals requires a lot of help. As a dean, you get to stand up here and talk about these issues, but really we stand on the shoulders of giants. We cannot do these things without 5 key constituents or 5 key stakeholders that make everything work for what we do. The first of these is having ambitious plans themselves. And that's not really a stakeholder, but it is part of any kind of agenda. You have to dream big. 光是做梦是不够的，我们必须付诸要行动，全力以赴，成功我们的工作。We have to have these ambitious plans, and we have to believe in a big future. But then where do we go from there? Well, we rely very heavily on faculty and staff. If I didn't have George Jabor on my team, we wouldn't have been able to do this program. We simply wouldn't have been able to pull it off. George brings such deep experience and knowledge to this, and it is without that partnership, this program would not be. Similarly, you need great staff to do these things. And on the Renmin side, of course, Sue and John has been wonderful, but for our side, we also have people like Sanjay Rapani and Paul Dye who have been helping us tremendously roll these events and these programs out. We couldn't do it without students. You students are so integral to what we're doing, and we are now not just in a teacher-student relationship, we are in a partnership for the future. We couldn't do it without a key partner. Our relationship with Renmin University is now one of our prized relationships in the business school, and it's one that's not just a business school relationship, because our entire university is behind the partnership that we have built now. And hopefully we'll have a similar kind of relationship with the Pseudo Industrial Park Commission at some point as well. And we couldn't do it without our stakeholders who are philanthropic and supporters of the university in many, many different ways. We have the Alumni Association that's represented here. We have someone from my board of trustees. We have parents of a student who's an undergrad at George Washington University. All of these people have traveled great distances to come here just for this event, and I'm truly touched by the fact that we have such support from such great stakeholders who really believe in what the future is. And so I just want to close by saying I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so excited to welcome you all into the GW community on what will truly be a unique voyage and hopefully a great success in bringing our nations closer together. Thank you.